greeting from Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is Dr. Pamod Amarkon, representing Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka. I would like to warmly welcome all of you around the globe for the special AeHIN introduction to OpenMRS and its ecosystem. Today's event is special because it's the first of the series of capacity building programs on e-health brought to you by the Sri Lankan Community Interoperable Lab of Asia eHealth Information Network and the global OpenMRS community. We have with us today several experts of health informatics in the AeHIN region, including Professor Vajra Disanayake, the President of Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka, Dr. Marcelo, AeHIN Executive Director, Dr. Rosha Patirana, CEO of HISSL, and many others. Today, exceeding over 100 attendees currently registered in Webex. Thank you all for joining. I'd also like to thank all of you who have responded to our online questionnaire to decide on direction and future sessions of this training program. We inform you on the topics and the dates of future sessions in due time. Since this regional event of Sri Lankan Community Interoperability Lab, I would like to invite Professor Vajra Disanayake, the Manager of Sri Lankan Community Interoperability Lab, as well as the President of Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka, to make a welcome note. Also,
hi, Pramod, for the action. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for the Sri Lanka to conduct this workshop, this open MRS webinar with the Asian eHealth Information Network. I'd like to set actually the contribution of Dr. Marcelo, who initiated AeHIN, as well as the idea of the community of interoperability labs. We are part of the community. I hope that what we start today can grow, and we will be able to, in collaboration with various partners that we have built across the world, bring to you quality e-health training. So I would like to also, in that note, thank OpenMRS, especially Suranga and for agreeing to join up with us to conduct these a series of webinars. I hope a few would benefit from this and will enjoy it. So over to Pramod again. We hope to see all of you at future webinars too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Today's session, I will briefly mention a few things to remember while using Webex platform. Once you've logged into Webex, the left panel is where you shall see the content presented by the panelists, including the PowerPoint presentations, videos, etc. The right panel contains some useful tools. If you click on Participants icon, it will display all panelists and attendees currently logged in to the event. The button can be used to ask questions from the panelists. Also provide feedback during the presentation by clicking on applause, yes, no, too fast, too slow, and laughter buttons. Please note that your microphone will be automatically muted once you join as an attendee. Any issues in receiving audio during the webinar, please log out from the Webex platform and try to re-log in. Is the first of a series of online training programs. We would like to keep it interactive as much as possible. The entire session will be divided under several headings. At completion of each, we would have a Q&A session. Please send us your questions in the Q&A panel so that we can forward them to the resource person. If we connected via audio, provided you have a good internet connectivity and minimal background noise, please mention that in the Q&A panel as well. Resource person for today's special AeHIN hour, he is Suranga Kasuraratne, the Regional Community Manager of Asia Pacific Region for OpenMRS. A brief on Suranga. He has a bachelor's degree in software engineering from University of Westminster, UK in 2013 with first-class honours. He has interest in clinical decision support, health standards, health information architecture, and being an early adopter of OpenMRS. In as implementer and trainer in OpenMRS community for over 7 years, his contributions also include designing of OpenMRS Developers Guide and OpenMRS CDA Generator module. He's also a Summer of Code mentor as well as co-organization administrator for OpenMRS and regional community manager for Asia Pacific region for OpenMRS since 2014. He's currently reading for his PhD in Health Informatics at Indiana University, Indianapolis. With you, I would like to invite Suranga to start the session. Over to you, Suranga.
Thank you, Megan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Suranga.
Everybody, please give me a few minutes while I share my PowerPoint presentation. Right, as you can see my slides.
Thanks.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It's the first time I'm addressing the AeHIN community, and I hope that this will be the first of many such presentations to come. I'll be talking about OpenMRS and take you through the first few introductory steps. I am this presentation the first few steps because that's what I'm hoping it will be. There's going to be many more presentations of this nature to come. Actually, you'll learn a lot about the OpenMRS community and how we work in the future. Moving to cover. I'll start with what OpenMRS is. I'll provide you with a brief overview of how OpenMRS is and its functionalities. Then our major feature list and how-tos. I used you to the basic OpenMRS ecosystem. That is the tools and applications that work with OpenMRS. And finally, I introduce you to interacting with OpenMRS and can be a community member. Starting off, OpenMRS. We like to think of OpenMRS as more than just a software. We think OpenMRS as a community that drives the development of a software system. So the OpenMRS is more than just a software. It's basically a group of people who have joined together to address a specific need. So what is the OpenMRS platform? The OpenMRS platform is an open source medical record system platform that's designed specifically for use across underserved settings. It's distributed under the Mozilla Public License version 2.0. OpenMRS was first conceived back in 2004 and implemented in Kenya in 2006. We have gone on widespread adoption. I think we currently stand at somewhere around 40 implementations across the world. When thinking about OpenMRS, it's very important to understand who adopts OpenMRS and why. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot from atlas.openmrs.org. We have a module where we allow users to voluntarily sign in and information about the implementation. So it's totally voluntarily. See, there are different types of using OpenMRS for different reasons. There are people using OpenMRS for research, clinical work, for development, evaluation, many reasons. Also collect information such as which version of using and who people are. So in the map, you will see that OpenMRS is basically spread across the world, and there's a lot of representations across underserved settings. So one mission to have a better understanding of how OpenMRS works and then go for help. That this is very voluntary, so that means that many people who have actual implementations don't with the information. So we have much more implementations than seen in this map. So what can OpenMRS be used for? Well, many reasons. Obviously, clinical care. It's widely used for clinical care. It's used as a teaching tool. Especially in the US, used it for research. Used for public health purposes. For example, if you want to potentially identify cases of high infectious diseases, syndromic surveillance, Open is being used for that purpose. We have what is called nodal condition detection. And in this capacity, it's being used in the United States for statewide surveillance. Component of larger health information architecture uses the shared health record. That is basically you collect data from multiple settings and make it usable and available to a large number of people. It's also used as a terminology registry. That is basically used as a repository of terminology. I know there's a big difference between talking about system and trying it out yourself and playing about with the code. So we have a number of public demos. You go to demo.openmrs.org and in there and play with the system there. But please note that this is a public demo, so there's a lot of people interacting with the system. So what we see basically scrub the data on this online platform every night. If you want a robust demonstration system, I recommend that you use the OpenMRS standalone. But what it does is it provides you with a zip file, and you need one click to make a runnable RS instance with some demo data. So that's a more viable solution in the long term. If you want a demo that involves multiple people or a small community, setting it up on your machine using Apache Tomcat and MySQL, we provide very detailed instructions on how to do this. So it also provides you with help to the community. With a quick technical overview, I won't go very deep. I'll just explain basics. Open is built on your basic open source Java components. If you look at the presentation layer, we have Visual HTML, JSP, jQuery combination. This is basically the meat of the OpenMRS platform is purely Java and Spring based. We use Spring for a large number of purposes. We use Spring for authentication. We're managing model view controller layouts. We use it also for things like localization and internationalization. So Spring is widely used. This layer, we hibernate to manage observational relational mapping. That means that technically we can stay independent of databases. Right, we recommend the use of MySQL, but we are not limited to MySQL. I know that at least a few people have used OpenMRS with Postgres. So here's how we enable that. Key features. Do we have questions up?
We just have one question. It's actually, I think you might be mentioning about it in future as well. It goes as, who are the developers of OpenMRS? Can anybody contribute, or do you have designated developers?
About that, I will be talking about that in detail later, but we do not have designated developers as such. We are much a voluntary organization. So we have a few senior developers who have been with the community for some time. So they either paid developers or they are fully voluntary. They help newcomers to work with OpenMRS and set up their own features. So no any kind of special invitation or certificate to start working with us. But you need to go to open bugs, talk to the community, and you can start working right away. So that at the very end of the session as well.
Okay, we can proceed.
Okay. So continue. I'll be adding a few key features over the next few slides. Please, we have a lot of features. I'm only talking about very intel features that is what OpenMRS is about. But we have a central concept dictionary. We have form design and entry. We have module architecture. we have import and export, support for various L7 organization endorsed standards, and capacity for localization and internationalization. What each of these mean? About what each of these features are, it's also important to keep a few important matters in mind. How does OpenMRS evolve? At the beginning, the OpenMRS founders made a very strong commitment that they would only do what people want them to do. So that means that OpenMRS features and OpenMRS development is driven by real needs. So for example, that means that just because you understand or think that something is going to be useful for people, we're not going to build it. We are going to build something if we feel that the community has a very active need for it and that there's an actual want. Wait until the community is ready before we go ahead building stuff. Also, we have a very wide variety of contributors from all parts of the globe. At our developer resources, you will see a diverse group of people. We have the world: Africa, Kenya, Asia, Europe, Russia, US. It's very diverse. That we have taken a very active effort to make sure that as diverse as possible. We want to make sure that OpenMRS is not limited to just of people who are sitting in America, but rather we've taken steps to encourage other people, implementers, people who are actually using the software, to then become part of the leadership group and help drive OpenMRS forward. So we on what as we think OpenMRS is very good at making clinical record systems. So other organizations are good at other things that they do. For example, we know people who build lab systems. We know who manage healthcare standards. So what we focus at, what we are good at, and we strong relationships with other people who are good at what they do. So if we think of trying to build our own lab systems, we connect to other people who are good at building lab systems. So focus on our piece of the pie, enable other people who are good at what they are doing, and we work together. Going back to features, I know that the concept dictionary is a very important feature, but the concept dictionary represents a very important thinking pattern in OpenMRS. As you know, the purpose of clinical record system is to manage data in a standardized way. So we need a concept dictionary. Concept dictionary is basically like a normal dictionary that you use in the English language or any language. The idea is to clear content and help people define them. You know, we have a very robust concept dictionary. Our concept dictionary maps to a large number of different terminologies, from LOINC to SNOMED to norm. You use the concept dictionary and its mappings. You make your data usable across a large number of different settings. For example, and use your data across multiple healthcare applications. For example, if I create an OpenMRS using the concept dictionary, I also move it over to maybe a application or maybe DHIS2 or any other application of the same standards and reuse the data. We can have translations, which makes it easier for other doctors and other clinicians in the world to understand the data we've been persisting, and the same to provide the network. What is the CIEL concept dictionary? So MV stands for the Millennium Villages Project, and CIEL stands for the Columbia International eHealth Laboratory. So these are the two organizations that joined together to build the MVP CIEL concept dictionary. This is what we call the default concept dictionary and maps to a large number of very well-known terminology services. However, that doesn't mean that you're restricted to using that. For example, let's want to create data about malaria. to the concept dictionary and you look at all terms that are supposed malaria. Let's try to find the term that you want. You have two options. One, create that term locally and map it locally so that you can still use the data. Or you can talk to the people who manage the CIL dictionary and recommend that someone this new concept or this new term into the system. You can actually contribute towards the dictionary as well. I just give people an understanding of how a concept looks like. I'm sure many of you have seen this and used this multiple times, but just so that we don't leave anything behind. To create a concept, it's important to define a specified name, a synonym, search name, short names, descriptions. Also important to try to understand what kind of data this concept is going to store. Support a large number of data types from numeric to text to coded to and complex data. In the Excel you are seeing here, we are trying to create a concept for a numeric data type. So people set things like absolute high, critical high, critical low, absolute low. So why do we switch? Why use these parameters? If you create a concept with these parameters, they can be used for later to notify people of dangerous or harmful conditions. So here I highlight how people create mappings. So for example, let's say you created a mapping of maybe malaria or tuberculosis. Concept you created is going to be useless unless you map it to relevant terminology. So for example, here, I'm trying to map it to normal city. How a concept relationship that says it's green or same as or smaller than. Also pointing to the proper source, the proper concept terminology, and things like codes. Once we create the concept dictionary, it's important to collect data using that concept dictionary. So we have different approaches. We have HTML form entry and have X forms entry. The form entry is basically for web-based forms. It provides you with very nice looking forms that you can use in your web screens. It was also along the same pattern. It also uses the concept dictionary. It supports mobile-based systems. So, information system where you need both web and mobile, you should go with X forms. Or it's called a form bank. The idea is that people who have used designed forms of their own on our OpenMRS wiki so that other people can either learn from them or improve them. The thing HTML form looks like. So what happens is we are using JavaScript and HTML to build your own forms. Through OpenMRS module, we'll be talking about modules later on. But that you write up a HTML schema pointing to the correct data points, and it will display to you as something like this. So this is for John David, and it's a vitals form. It's collecting data for John David's vitals. Things like height, weight, temperature, pulse, respirate. When I was showing you the concept, I showed you that we get things like higher or critical or low. Well, that's where things like that, those which come in handy. For example, I enter height that's too high, or BI that's too low, or temperature that's too high. Allows me to provide some kind of alert or warning to users to be careful of this patient. Reporting. So first you concepts. Using the concepts, you build forms, and now look at the forms and understand the data that you're capturing. With reporting. So we open OpenMRS reporting module, and we provide two basic reporting structures. One is domain, and the other is indicators. What happens here is that the OpenMRS reporting module and define what kind of reports you want to run on the data that you collect. What you are seeing here is row per domain. So what happens is, for each domain, so for example, it can be a patient, it can be an encounter, it can be something else. We define each of those, collect all the data across the. For example, what you're seeing is basically data collected for a group of patients. So that's basically the patient identifiers, and columns represent that we have collected on them. I believe the second column stands for the patient's birth dates. The third column stands for patient locations. So this is a row per domain report. We have indicator reports. That's basically run on cohorts of patients. So what is, we try to ask more generic questions like, in this here we are asking how many male patients. How many male patients under the age of 15. For patient Mulundi, look at how many male patients under the age of 15 we have during between these 2 dates. I get a report. It provides to you responses and links to all the patients falling into the category. Any further? Point?
You have one question from Guardians Sanjay. He asks, can we extract the concept dictionary from OpenMRS? Could it be used in other systems?
That's actually a very good question. Yes. So that example of the OpenMRS community working together with other people. So the Open community has a very strong relationship with the MVP-CIL group, and their product is basically the format of a CSV file. It doesn't have to be just OpenMRS. You can contact MVP-CIL group and ask for their dictionary, and that you in CSV form. Dictionary, and basically you can take it in CSV form and use it for whatever reasons that you want. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
So let me continue. OpenMRS systems mature. The implementers started to have bigger and more widespread needs, and those needs was how can OpenMRS and use it to define our own workflows. Like OpenMRS platform, we have defined workflows where people create patients and move on to dashboard and enter data. Some implementers have the question of how they could define their own user workflows, and they start planning their system according to the workflow that they need. So to do that, we needed something called service-oriented architecture, and that we basically wrote a REST Web Services module. What happens here is basically instead of the OpenMRS Web API, we are also using a different API using REST. So if you want to build their own APIs or their own workflows, can go to the REST Web Service and define their own workflows. That is very widely used, and it has been in use, I think, for at least 4 or 5 years. Many people, I can think of 2 very widely known uses, the OpenMRS Android client and the iOS client. So both of these are mobile-based clients that interact with the OpenMRS server using the REST module. Explaining what services we support. So if you install the OpenMRS REST Services module on the OpenMRS platform, we have a Swagger frontend that shows all the operations you can do. In this list, you will see that it's very, very comprehensive. Basically, we have pretty much all of the OpenMRS domain objects. For something like a patient, there are so many operations you can do. You can get identifier, you can get by patient UUID, you can post, you can update. It's very, very extensive. It's very widely used. If people like build mobile clients or design their own workflows, REST service is the way to go. I'll also talk about interoperability support. So interoperability features or standards do we support? Yes, we have had a very strong commitment for managing standardized data and have taken a lot of trouble to do so. I support HL7 version 2, 3, and FIRE. In HL7 version 2, our support is very, very extensive. We less for passing HL7 version 2 messages within the OpenMRS core itself. And in terms of consuming version 2, there are a large number of modules that people can use. What I call the HL7 query module. The idea is that if someone sees data that's important data that they want transferred to a different system, the HL7 query module to capture data in HL7 message format and code that data. Now, limited support for HL7 version 3, basically for CDA and CCD. We want to have more widespread support, but unfortunately, we didn't think that version 3 was much widespread use. So, FIRE. Very important thing for OpenMRS it represents how we change our thinking. Has been that people in Europe design standards and people elsewhere basically play catch up with version 2 or version 3, and elsewhere people basically adopt it. And the people in the Western countries develop the standards and they don't think about what other people want. So there's basically a gap in knowledge there. So we want to tackle it in a different way. So open leadership basically worked with the FIRE architect and the other FIRE developers to make sure that our needs would also be represented. So developing FIRE support for OpenMRS at the same time that the FIRE standard was mature, which we could ask them for changes, we could discuss things, we could ask them to consider possibilities where economies had different needs. So we think active hand in supporting FIRE development, and we think that FIRE is very and robust for user-served settings. The OpenMRS FIRE API, what's the DSTU2 standard? Support for OAuth, which is security that FIRE recommends. So it's quite ready and fit to be used. Oops. So at this, I'm going to talk a little about implementation and give you a very basic idea about how implementing OpenMRS and how to use different OpenMRS modules and components. So here's how I envision the OpenMRS world. You have what you call the OpenMRS platform, which is basically the OpenMRS WAR file. So what we had was we had the OpenMRS platform and could configure it for use. They configured it by setting different global properties. They configured it by using forms. They configured it by creating their own concepts. In some, they wanted more functionality. They added what is called modules. So when you had the OpenMRS WAR file, you added modules and you configured it for use. However, as we began to work with different people in the health domain, we tried to create more support for different people with other different tools. For example, Open supports clinical informatics software. On the other hand, there are things like lab systems and order entry systems that are also useful. Came up with the concept of OpenMRS distribution. So platform, and you have a platform and you add modules and you add other systems and you make it a distribution. So there are two examples of OpenMRS distributions for people to use. The first you call the OpenMRS reference application. So if you look at openmrs.org, basically seeing is the OpenMRS reference application. The OpenMRS distribution maintained by the ThoughtWorks community, and that's called Barmini. All that is that anybody who wants can go on to create their own distributions by integrating whatever components that they want. That these people make these distributions available, implementers can take them, add to them, and configure them for their own use. And through each of these distributions and types over the next few slides. Big questions one more time. I'll quickly explain what OpenMRS modules are. So I have the OpenMRS WAR file, which is basically your platform. People want to extend OpenMRS, for example, say add features that they want, change features, reduce features, things like that. What you need to create an OpenMRS module. There are a large number of different modules that people can use. For example, there's a module for reporting, there's a module for email form entry, there's one for file. There are a number of modules, and all of these are basically freely available. The OpenMRS WAR file, you install that, and you got whatever modules you need for other additional functionality. And a top. So, others that you want to implement on top of setup, you can write your own modules. We provide very detailed documentation. All you just follow the documentation and write up your module, expose it to the OpenMRS API, and work. The concept of community maintained modules versus implementer maintained modules. So once the module is very widely used, the OpenMRS community starts taking over it. And it's just that we are responsible for maintaining the module and making sure that it doesn't break. When the module is basically usable by everybody across the community and that it's not too generic. Other modules that are very much more specific. They can be implementation specific, they can be region specific, but the idea is that we are not responsible for maintaining the module, but that the developers are. Do point?
Suranga from Pengali Herlambang. It goes as, hi, I'm using OpenMRS 2.x version. The interfaces are friendly. Are there any module development projects for 2.x version?
Oh, so when you have 2.0 UI, that's basically the current application, and we have introduced a lot of more custom UI features there. Actually, there are a number of UI projects that we are working on to improve the functionality. Best way to get the idea is to go on IRC channel and talk about it to other OpenMRS developers. Or look at talk.openmrs.org. Just interacting with the community. I'll provide some more steps on how to do that later on in the presentation. I hope, but I'll be touching base for the community again at the very end. I think that should be. Few slides. I'm trying to explain the difference between a reference application and the OpenMRS platform. As we initially had the OpenMRS platform, which was basically a WAR file, but we thought that it could be improved a lot more. So what we built what is called the reference application, which is the first OpenMRS distribution. That we wrote a bunch of modules that added enhanced UI features and other functionality as a layer over the WAR file. So the idea is OpenMRS reference application is basically the platform plus a number of modules that work in addition to provide better features. So for example, what right now is the login page for the OpenMRS platform with username, password, login. Now is the in login page where we have also used the concept of location-based login. So I said basically we are not writing many changes to the core API. We are basically adding changes how it looks. So it's just more UI, plus we added the possibility of using location-based logins. Once you log into the OpenMRS platform using the old version, use something like this, the admin page. with links for everything and a toolbar at the very top. So we use that. The reference application, what you see is this. You pick a bunch of applications based on who the user's role is. See, doctor and I logged into the platform, into the reference application. I will links. Inside, I see these applications, which I, as a doctor, can do. What the patient search and create functionality looks like in the OpenMRS WAR file. See, it's pretty basic. You have a find patient where you can enter, type in things, and your patient option where you can create patient names and birth dates and things like that. So we can start, and we've made it a more easy, beautiful approach. That have a pane where you can basically work your way through different features. This and add your own features to registering patients. You can change variables, you change absolute highs and lows, and things like that. This is the OpenMRS dashboard as it was. So once you enter data for that patient, you will something like this on the patient dashboard. For example, here it is Elizabeth Johnson, 23 years old. So you think things like her labs for her overview, visits, demographics, and forms. You see basically forms that have been entered for that specific patient. Something like this. Mary Perez, 85 years. So here's like diagnosis, vitals, recent visits, and general actions. Now the difference here is that each of these, for example, diagnosis, vitals, allergies, can be figured according to what you want. You can say, I don't want to see any diagnosis in my patient dashboard, or you can say, I do only want to see the kind of diagnosis in my dashboard. This is for vitals. You can basically change what you want. Also add other things. For example, you can say, for this patient, show me all appointments. Or for this patient, show me potential high-risk situations. All can be basically configured easily. Actions, you can also configure more features. We have things like scheduling appointments, performing chart searches, and managing patient visits. Screen to show how we changed how forms were built. So, seeing the vitals form for John David, again, I see it's very basic and it provides you with like very basic UI and functionality on patient vitals. We check that to some this. As you can see, there's a form of validation. You can enter things like patient temperature, and it will check you on whether accurate or not. You can modify and specify more easier user experience. So, as I mentioned earlier, Mini is also an OpenMRS distribution, and it still thought works. I don't know if you have heard of Mini. I'll give you a very brief introduction. Mini is an open source hospital system for role source settings. So what we do is OpenMRS platform, and they create OpenMRS with two other software systems. Odoo, or what was called OpenERP for inventory management, and there's OpenELIS, which is the open source lab information system, which is used for managing lab data. So when Mini took these three open source systems and configured the systems to work with one another and packaged it as a single open system, an OpenMRS distribution. So implement choice now. They have a choice of the OpenMRS reference application, which is what you saw before, and also have the choice of Mini. It's going to start with the OpenMRS reference application and switch to Mini and vice versa. Now I'm going to talk about the OpenMRS ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, I'm talking about basically other open source systems, are components of health information systems that should work. Medical data entry system. These tools. So we have the concept of a master patient index. So what is master patient index? It's working with national or regional information, health information. We'll see that many providers don't want to duplicate patient data across multiple systems. So let's say you have 2 hospitals and a patient in both hospitals. They want to replicate the same patient's data across 2 different hospital systems. So what you have a different software application called patient's unique ID. That's what a master patient index is. There are a number of standards that work with master patient indexes and allow people to exchange data. So what we've done is we have built support for OpenMRS to work with such master patient indexes. The organization endorses 2 standards, PICS, which is the patient identity cross-referencing profile, and PD, which is the patient demographics query. Gives support for people to use these 2 queries and connect with 2 different master indexes. The first is an EMPI, and second is MedicCR. However, not limited to just these 2. Anything that supports HISSL mandated standards can connect with OpenMRS. What is basically OpenMRS in use with the patient index? So what is it? The slide. Just here is how a provider is trying to create a patient. So provider into the screen, provider enters patient data, and the provider creates a patient. What we send a query to the existing master patient index, and the MPI returns a message saying the patient who is similar to the one you are creating already in the system. Do you patient or do you want to existing patient? So this is one example of how it works in a production instance. The second situation, if you want to send out reminders or alerts, use case, and there are so many different ways to do this. There is once you create a patient on the system and you are monitoring the patient and you identify what may be a high risk situation, or you might send a reminder to the patient and ask the patient to return or perform some other specific action. So there are so many ways to do this. And as an example, I point you to Rapid SMS. So an open source messaging framework that's used by many mobile services. It's built atop Python and Django. As an example, we use this in Rwanda, maternal care use case. So I want to report to a public registry. But what if in your health system you have an registry, or you have a cancer registry, or you have a AIDS registry? What if any potential cases of a specific disease such as a public registry? That a notifiable condition detection comes into play. Whenever somebody creates patient data, the platform listens to this data, the message, identifies if the disease is a possible disease or notifiable condition, performs appropriate actions, for example, sending reminders or messages to a public health registry. This model is widely used. It's even in use in America. For example, with the biohealth threats and bio-attack what America had, they've started using OpenMRS in CD attacks. It's used for managing all patient data across the state of Indiana currently. Case 2. Many of you might have questions regarding how to connect to DHIS2. What is that DHIS2 is an excellent tool and we widely support DHIS2. in our other data aggregation tools that we also support and also would with, there are multiple options and ways of doing this, and they are in various stages of use. We'll talk about that in more detail because I'm sure we'll be talking about that over the next presentations to come. A different concept. What if needed to move between clinics? So what if a patient comes into clinic A, you wanted to move that patient to clinic B? That's the concept of health information exchange comes into play. I know you at least have worked in this, and it's a widely known concept. The OpenMRS community works very closely with what is called OpenHISSL, the Open Health Information Exchange. The idea is that people who collect data using OpenMRS or any other application can exchange patient data across multiple settings. So, for example, data collected in the first city or the first hospital, second hospital, and synchronized back. Already being used as a component of the HIE Rwanda. Basically a diagram of exchange. I just want to put it up here because I could show like how widely OpenMRS can be used. So for example, we see point of care service applications, which data is being collected, and then health information exchange up there, which is basically synchronized across multiple systems. I can't explain this in a detailed way because we are constrained by time, but I want to point out that OpenMRS currently can put multiple of these components. For example, a clinic as a point of service application, you can use OpenMRS for that. If you're out healthcare workers with mobile phones that basically run the OpenMRS iOS or Android client, they can also perform the point of service application. With information exchange, OpenMRS can function as the shared health record, that is, the repository of all OpenMRS data collected across the entire region. OpenMRS can also function as the terminology registry and has been used in capacity by a number of implementations. OpenMRS smart platform. So, smart platform. As mentioned earlier, I said that OpenMRS had a strong commitment to work with emerging software to make sure that there was no divide between the us and the more advanced settings. So the idea was that OpenMRS will work very closely with upcoming technology to make people everywhere across the world can also benefit from the same tools as students. So the smart platform is one such example. Think of smart as basically a front end that's pluggable to a standardized healthcare database. So what platform organizations have done is they have built a number of standardized front ends or front end applications that can be used to perform certain standardized care actions. So if that the smart platform exposes they are using FHIR, and a record system that supports FHIR as a standard can integrate with the smart platform and use smart platform frontend or the smart screens for payer. So is that you're not restricted to just using the OpenMRS frontend. So for example, you need to work with just the OpenMRS screens or any other mobile-based screens. If you have a specific care purpose that you want to support, and basically go to the smart platform system, identify a good front end that works for you, and database with OpenMRS database, which is system. Listed are a bunch of smart applications that are already supported. So there's things for BP centiles, there's things for cardiac risk, for clinical data, there's also things for pediatric growth. The idea that basically to use these applications, integrate to them, and won't be restricted to using just our own UI. The initiative I want to talk to you about is the Odyssey framework. Odyssey. Odyssey is basically another up-and-coming initiative. It stands for Observational Health Data Sciences and Informatics. This is somewhat similar to what DHIS is doing. Their effort is to basically look at data that's being collected, this data, and perform large-scale analytics across multiple disciplines. For example, Odyssey understands that people managing clinical data don't have exposure to a large number of clinical practices. So what they do is they work with those expertise, manage a number of different different aggregate systems for entry. So now this support disciplines like clinical medicine, bioethics, and epidemiology. So, example, seeing OpenMRS data being used with the HISSL application. So, actually, you saw how the OpenMRS reporting module could be used to perform specific reports, how to create specific data sets. The application works in a similar way. So what here is it has gone through the OpenMRS database and it broke down the OpenMRS data using the Achilles database application. Here the population of patients by gender, it's the age breakdown at the first observation. It's showing the percentage of population breakdown and people breakdown by date. This is example. Provides a number of other applications to support drug-drug interactions, harmful conditions, and cancer care, etc. At this point, and ask if there are any questions based on what I have said.
I have several general questions and country-specific ones. Do you want to take it at this moment, or are you going to proceed and we can take them at towards the end of the session?
I think we'll, if they're all that generic, I think we should take them at the very end.
Yeah.
I must say I prepared for a 1 hour session, so we don't have a lot more to cover. We'll be just talking about interacting with the community. So, session might cover many of the questions. But I'll talk through these few slides and then go on to the next question.
Sure. That's better.
About that. So, very good, a very brief idea of OpenMRS and how different MRS work and function. About how to interact with the OpenMRS community. So, as I mentioned before, OpenMRS places more emphasis on the people rather than just the software. Ourselves is a group of people who basically output the software. So for us, the people are more important. OpenMRS is largely driven by volunteers, people who work on their free time just because it interests them. Fully open source, and we are very open to open source principles. So what means? That means a lot of freedom within the community to do whatever you want. So let's talk through community channels and integration with the community and how to be a better participant within the OpenMRS platform. You're a newbie or someone who is working at a specific company or an organization and you have to do something. So interact with OpenMRS. So the option is you can go on IRC and you can time with any community participant. So I don't know how many of you have used IRC before. It stands for Internet Relay Client. It's basically a Skype group chat. Come in, log in, introduce yourself, and ask basic questions about difficulty that you're having in either indicating or implementing OpenMRS. If you use the OpenMRS IRC channel, you will be exposed to a large number of different people who are who will be more available to help you. When you use IRC over contacting specific people, because IRC exposes your questions and problems to more people, the mail might just do it to one person. So I'm chatting or having quick chats with people. But if you have more long-drawn conversations or more technical conversations, we have a source of an online forum called talk.openmrs.org. It's covered by discussion. Basically, it can be used as a mailing list. We have different talk forums. One for developers, there's one for implementers, another. If you are encountering specific problems, you can go to talk.openmrs.org, use your question, and help the community to your specific question. We wiki.openmrs.org. We put a lot of focus and effort into maintaining our wiki documentation. So, a specific question, you might want to go on the internet and search whether it has been asked before. Some may have been raised before. A very big source of information on that. You read the wiki documentation, you are welcome to propose changes. So basically use it as you see fit. Again, we are perfect, so we are sure to have a large number of bugs. System. You may also encounter very potent methods of improvement. So if a bug or a source of improvement, meant that you go to our Jira ticket management system under issues.openmrs.org. So there are ID, login, and both that system. We can be in fixing it, but we can, the community volunteers can basically help you and talk to you and they to get it fixed as soon as possible. Above was a few ways of interacting with the community. There are also a number of weekly meetings that you can participate in. For example, every Thursday we have the OpenMRS developers call. And Tuesdays and Wednesdays we have project design calls and universal call that's managed basics. So, what do we do meetings? Anything that the community requires. For example, you're working on a specific implementation and you have an issue that you would like to get more input on. What you can go on to one of the weekly meetings pages on the wiki and that we discuss a given during an upcoming OpenMRS design meeting. Once we get suggestion, we can act on that and we can help you get it scheduled. At meeting, we can talk to you about your problem and get a more input on how to solve it. Aside, the meetings are basically one way of getting support from the community. Widely encourage you to take part and we actively participate in it. They are basically by your needs. Explains what I thought would be a very brief overview of the community and how to interact with it. I recommend you to join in as we are a very friendly and very open community. We take a lot of effort to help people as much as we can. So I'm sure you will have a very positive experience doing so. Public questions at this point?
Yes, thank you very much for the very informative, elaborated first session, Suranga. We can now move on to a brief Q&A session. I would like to remind you, please use the Q&A box on your right panel to type in your questions, and we will try our best to accommodate all the questions that you can ask. We can also provide facility to ask questions using voice, provided if you have a good internet connectivity and minimum background disturbance. Please mention in Q&A box if you are available for connecting via voice. We have several questions in different areas. I would take the question asked by Dr. Jayashree Vijayaratne. She asked about the concepts Are they modifiable? If so, where is it stored? I'm repeating again about the concepts. Are they modifiable? If so, where is it stored?
So about the concept dictionary, that we want to promote better use of concepts, but at the same time, we don't want to restrict you. So all concepts, once they are imported, are stored with the OpenMRS database. When you install OpenMRS, you get the concept dictionary installed. I mean, you need to use that. That doesn't mean that you have to use exactly that. If you can create new concepts, and there is no problem with that at all. If you want to make sure that the data that you store can be, for example, you created a bunch of data, to use that data with a different system. Instead, that you'll have to make the data standardized. So once, in addition to creating your own concepts, potential misses to the MVP community, and you can communicate with them and explain your specific needs. They are open. So that they are going to add support for the concepts that you need. Is before you any concept, first look through the existing concepts, search them by name, understand if the concepts that exist already work for you. If when using them, if you don't have the concepts that you need, you can create them. Or within the OpenMRS database, so you can change them as you see fit.
Suranga, there's another question regarding the community. It is, how is it possible to request? Sorry, repeat the question again. How is the community requests are entertained? What is the priority basis? How community requests entertained? What is the priority basis?
The priority basically depends on what kind of issue you are bringing forward. So the implementer somewhere in India or Philippines and discover a core fundamental bug in the OpenMRS platform. Let's say you found under a specific condition you can inject SQL into the OpenMRS platform. We call that to be very high priority, and we would probably put in all the resources to work on that and fix it as soon as possible. So very high priority. In others, let's say things that are like lesser importance, it might time. So what if once you go to the OpenMRS platform, we will have somebody within the community look at the ticket and curate the ticket. So we will go over your ticket as very, very important or low importance based on how we perceive it to the community. And you do the resources to fix it. It's some time for the community to fix it based on how important they think it is. You can ask people to fix your ticket by talking about it on IRC, and depending on how important it is, trying to offer some kind of bounds to the community to fix it. Let's say you find a problem and you wanted help in fixing it. Let's say you had somebody within the community, a friend who had the skills required to fix it. You're welcome to fix it and submit a pull request. We fully entertain all pull requests. We don't. We subset of developers who are only allowed to code on OpenMRS. Everybody is welcome to code on OpenMRS. If such request is made, what happens is we will have somebody who has been of the community for a long time. It's up to standard. For example, they might suggest changes or improvements. You on your pull request and finally merge the system. Idea is that we don't limit who gets to write code for OpenMRS. It's anybody can do it. We have high school students who contribute to OpenMRS. Let them do that? Because we evaluate what they do and we carefully monitor what they do. So when they submit code to us, we review it very carefully. We make them fix changes for us. Then they fix bugs for us. And once we are fully satisfied, do we accept the code? So it's open to anybody, but it depends on how the community, how it thinks it is, and support you can provide to get it fixed.
Yeah, I'll take up all the questions related to community at this moment. There is another question. It goes as, do country-specific communities or community managers in OpenMRS? I repeat the question. Do you have country-specific communities or community managers in OpenMRS?
Very, very excellent question. We recently started to do that, and we are actually ready to anybody who wants to do that. For example, we already have two communities. One is East-South community in Kenya. Other is one is the community in Rwanda, and the other is in Kenya. Basically, what happened was we had a large presence within those countries, and who are within that country wanted to work together and support the implementations. Basically, PSL expertise. So we do really support them. Let's say you are from a specific country or a specific region and build more local infrastructure and support for OpenMRS within your country. We encourage you to come on the OpenMRS wiki. We have enough wiki pages on how to apply to be a local community. There are requirements that we ask of you, but it's basic. We let you do a lot of things that you want to do. Our work is to support you in what you do. So, one, you to become a local community and you agree to one or two very basic expectations. We will pick you to have local leadership and help you setting up implementations, help you in getting trainings organized, things like that. So that's it, and we are very, very happy to welcome anyone who wants to talk further on that topic.
The question on the community. It is, how can I get a mentor or tutor for OpenMRS development?
Okay, that's a tougher question. It depends on what you want to do. For example, and also on your level of expertise. So, a developer who has some technical skills, the easiest way is to start writing code patches. So once you code patches, someone in the community is going to get back to you and suggest changes. Work with that person. It is easier for you to build relationships with them and become your de facto mentor as such. So that's one way of getting a mentor based on the work that you do. We have what is called the OpenMRS Guides program that's run by a Sri Lankan student named HISSL Kumar. If that once someone wants to work on OpenMRS, they reach out to the community. And Guides program basically tries to help them and put them in touch with the right people. Of doing things. At the time, the other question is needs restricted to just coding. For example, patients designing workflows. We have students trying to perform research. We have pediatricians. We have a large number of clinical people. We have working on terminology. So the question is, what kind of mentorship do you need? If you think, then yes, the two above mentioned ways. In terms of other kinds of mentoring, best way is to basically talk on the OpenMRS talk and understand who can help you. OpenMRS is largely voluntary people, so the time is actually limited, but you have a lot of focus on trying to mentor people. So I hope you have experience with that.
Question related to the community. It goes as, what would be the role of a community manager?
Community manager. Are you familiar with the term herding? Is that basically a community manager is responsible for managing people or helping people. They are enablers. So basically what I do is I try to help people within this region as much as possible to want to do. So if we want to do what OpenMRS want to do, if they want to do. Say one country comes forward and says, we don't want to implement, we can't implement, we want to learn or train using OpenMRS, or clinical care, we just want to research. My role, or any community manager's role, is how we can support them. So get you the resources to offer trainings. We can help you set up your own local infrastructure. We can point you to the right people who can come and help you. You want someone to pay somebody to work on your project, we can help you do that. Actually, a role as an enabler. Why the question was asked, it was basically in terms of wanting to support a local community. But I'll be able to chat further on that topic if there's more specific conversation or questions.
I'll keep you updated if we get a response from her. In the meantime, there's another question on the community and support. It goes as, are you able to conduct this kind of training for other groups? If what is the cost and the process?
So, what kind of groups that the person who asked the question is talking about? Yes, we do want to support as many people as possible and to organize trainings. It depends on what kind of training that you want to organize. Is it developer-based training, or for example, specifically implementation-based things, or do you want workshops on building forms, or do you want consultation in terms of how to manage systems? But we would like to support all of those. If any specific questions on what kind of things you want to do, mailing me, I email, or also you can mail community@openmrs.org. I will community.openmrs.org. If you send specific questions about other training events that you want conducted, we can either organize them for you or point you to the right persons, or trainings like figure out how payments and what kind of expectations are being placed.
Thank you. Convenience, we have displayed the email address in the Q&A box. Moving on to the more general, and actually we have since Suranga already mentioned about Bhamini, we have a question on Bhamini. It goes as, is Bhamini open source? Is it of use or need to pay for license?
It is fully free and open source. You don't require to pay for anything. Like us, they work very closely with us. ThoughtWorks basically gets the ThoughtWorks model is that they offer implementation support and they ask you to for that, but that doesn't mean you have to work with them. You can be on your own as well. ThoughtWorks, the organization, has a large number of OpenMRS contributors within us, within the organization. Offer a range of free and open support. We also have a demo, I believe. As their own mailing lists, and blog.openmrs.org, they have their own forum and ask questions. So it doesn't cost you anything, and as long as you can do it yourself. And they are very, very welcoming and very open people.
In the previous question on the OpenMRS particular training, the attendee has responded saying that he will get back to you through email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So you want shall I move on to other questions?
Oh yes, please. I'm sorry.
Yes. There is a question from Dr. Pradeep Silva from HISSL Sri Lanka. It goes as, is there a reusable repository of workflows? I'll repeat the question. Is there a reusable repository of workflows?
I think in this case, Dr. Pradeep is talking about RESTful workflows.
I'll try to get a confirmation from him if he's available online.
But in this case, I don't believe there is, even if it's that. we don't have a workflow repository as such. On the other hand, you can talk with people who have done that and get support from them. But my knowledge, there is no such repository as such.
All right, move to the next question. Is there already a way to validate the data which are entered to the form real time? I'll repeat the question. Is there already a way to validate the data which is entered into the form real time?
There is. For example, let's say you're collecting a patient's collecting recording weight. So let's say the doctor makes a mistake and enters something like 1,000 kilograms. Let's say extra zero by mistake. There are two ways of doing that. Remember, form is basically JavaScript and HTML. So you can basically write your own validation. You can say if entered something that is larger than 200 kilograms, display message. At the time, remember when I was creating a concept, I showed you a basically where we could say critical, high, or raw. So when creating the weight concept, had defined those fields, then yes, they could be reused. If you online demo and look at entering vitals, we already have that kind of support. For example, temperature can't be higher than a given a number of other validations of that kind, and they are real time and changeable. I hope that's full.
Yes. Now we'll move on to more general questions. First, does OpenMRS allow patient support like education? The question, does OpenMRS allow patient support like education?
When you education, I'm assuming that talking about things like where patients are notified of potential decisions, or is it?
I think it would help education for patients.
So, for example, let's say a patient is overweight and needs to be told to exercise, things like that.
Yes.
So, there are a number of organizations who did that by integrating OpenMRS with telehealth applications. So, for example, here's how you can do it. Patient's data is entered into the system. You can notifiable condition module to basically identify potential cause, potential situations. So, like for example, let's say analyze the patient's weight and think that he's overweight, or the patient is having Parkinson's and is not exercising. You can dot potential notifications and alerts to the patient, remind patient to either exercise or to take specific pills. So, for example, in that one potential use of medication, you can send a message to patient saying, you mentioned, so it's important that you exercise so and so daily. And then that's like, did you exercise today? Or did you take your medicine today? The system was used for tuberculosis patients in Chile, and I'm being used. It's basically OpenMRS, Rapid SMS, and health application. The very specific expectations on what the education is, I'm happy to answer.
I'll get back to you, Suranga, on that. Moving on to the next question from Dr. Roshan. This support mechanism provided in OpenMRS to communicate with biometric and lab equipment. Support mechanism provided in OpenMRS to communicate with biometric and lab equipment.
That is, let's see. As mentioned, we have taken a lot of effort to support standards. So the idea is that if the application supports standards, communicate with OpenMRS. So for example, let's say you have a set of equipment that performs a lab test. A machine can basically export HISSL version 2, version 3, or 5 message. Then you can consume it. Do things like making OpenMRS listen to a specific port and information. off of my head, I think there are at least 2 or 3 specific implementations that do that. Of specific examples, but it is specifically possible, but there might be some effort required. Already, I think the Barbary system provides OpenMRS, so there are more better support for that. Depending on what the Barbary support is, you might want to look at Barbary or work with the OpenMRS platform and customize it for your specific need. I think biometric applications. Wonder. But I think if Dr. Roshan.
Yes, sure. We have another question from Dr. Roshan. It says, if we branch off or develop specific codes on top of an existing OpenMRS version, how easy is it to ensure the forward compatibility with OpenMRS trunk? I'll repeat the question. If we branch off or develop specific codes on top of an existing OpenMRS version, how easy is it to ensure forward compatibility with OpenMRS trunk?
So, we are very worried about, and we are not certain whether we can do that kind of thing, that we can manage forward compatibility. To change specific functionality or such as changes, there are 2 ways of doing that. One, have an in-depth conversation with the community and changing the core itself. So, for example, let's say you have a requirement and OpenMRS will benefit from supporting that requirement. In that, if the entire community agrees, we get the support that specific case. Or other examples, you modules. So, for example, let's say you look at the OpenMRS AI and you want to add different objects. In that case, it's very easy to add your own module, and that has no problem at all whatsoever. It won't take anything. The things people should try to do is make sure that their work is aligned with the VAR and that they don't fork this repository. If you do that, it's going to be very much harder for you to benefit from other work within the community or to mistakes that they have made. So, trying to incorporate changes into the VAR, working on modules or applications that allow you to customize on top of the existing source code.
Next question we have is actually a combination of 2 questions, both regarding general practitioners. Does OpenMRS has a separate module for general practitioners, and does it allow communicate via mobile platform? OpenMRS has a specific module for general practitioners. Does it support communicate via mobile platform?
In terms of general practitioners, so in this, I will want to do is come and maybe reference patients to specialists and things like that. Currently, there is no specific module. What I think should be done is basically that we create a group of forms that are specifically for general practitioner users, like reporting the patient's complaint, recording the patient's name, things like that. So, if the existing system, I think if you are providing the OpenMRS platform, you already do things like capturing the patient's vitals, patient's address, contact information. That's all fine. I need to do is create a form for capturing the patient's initial complaint and things like that. So, patient's complaint and basic data like that, and adding a mechanism where you can refer into a specialist or other methods of care. So, don't support all of those, but they can be done if you write up a form or make small changes to the system. If there are specific needs that I did not consider, get back to me on this. I'll discuss it further.
The next question it goes as, are modules built for platforms or the reference applications? Repeat the question, are modules built for platform or the reference applications?
Both. The idea is that you have the OpenMRS VAR and you have to add your own features onto it. For example, say let's want to do something like let's say I like managing an object that's additional to what's in the code, but I have my own module to do that. So with that talked about reference application, what we basically wrote is of specialized modules that work together to make a platform a reference application. So I think it matter. A module can be basically used with the platform or a reference application. It has no problem. Basically, module, build it or modify, install it to the VAR, and it will work.
The next question, it goes, does OpenMRS meet meaningful use to criteria in the United States? I repeat the question, does OpenMRS meet meaningful to be used for criteria in United States?
That's a bit of a tough question to answer. That has been asked many times, and I know there are at least a few people who have done that analysis in the past. My knowledge that there are at least one implementation of OpenMRS which is meaningful use certified. Taking certain changes to the OpenMRS system and basically certified as meaningful use 2 certified. However, that required some work. In many cases, we don't actually follow or keep track of meaningful use. We think it's a good guideline. Implementers don't actually follow meaningful use in many of the cases we serve, so we haven't given it a priority. The answer, it can be done, and it has been done in at least one case, but it was some work.
It says, does OpenMRS allow population health information? I repeat the question, does OpenMRS allow population health information? I think what the attendee must be referring to is as a health portal representing the health status of whole population, the country like.
So something like what HISSL would provide. So remember my comment about what OpenMRS does. We focus specifically on what we are good at, and if such is doing something that's good, we work with them. So right now, what you can do is you can implement OpenMRS, collect your data, and report your data to a system that does that. For example, we support connections to DHIS2, actively working on improving that. I know a number of projects that connected OpenMRS with DHIS2. There's work happening, but that's very possible. The audit initiative that I talked to you about is another opportunity of doing that. It's also under the works. We know that there are at least 3 implementations that basically connect OpenMRS with DHIS2 and use OpenMRS for clinical care and DHIS2 for aggregate data reporting. So it is possible.
So, any confirmations and clarifications regarding the previous questions that you needed clarifications from the attendees? Once I receive them, I'll get back to you. Moving on to the next question. It goes laboratory module for OpenMRS.
There is a lab module, but I don't know if the functionality that the user wants, that the person who asked the question wants, is fully supported. So when we created the lab module, it was basically a way of tracking orders that was sent. So leave it a simple lab module, but as I remember, it was basically a way of tracking which patient it was and which lab report was being requested. It was basically getting back a response or things like that. So the lab module might not support everything that you want. You want to integrate OpenELIS or in nature with OpenMRS. So it might require a little bit of work. But as the lab system that you already have supports standards, because we know many systems, many companies at least try not to support standards or have very limited support. So it depends what versions of standards that are supported.
DHIS2, it goes as, is there an integration between OpenMRS and DHIS2 reports module? Is there integration between OpenMRS and DHIS2 report module?
That's a question I can't answer very accurately, because I know to the best of my knowledge that that was something that people were working on. I think India had a requirement for it, and I think they built it, and it's available. I cannot confirm that because I have been very involved with it. I want to raise that question on talk.openmrs.org, and I'll be happy to help you get that response to that question. But I'm really, I can't give you a definite answer.
We have several country-specific questions pending, and I think there are about 2 or 3 questions on Sri Lanka also. So I will try to take them one by one. The question goes as, how is the progress in Sri Lankan community to customize the OpenMRS platform compared to the situation 5 years back in Sri Lanka? A question, how is the progress in Sri Lankan community to customize the OpenMRS platform compared to the situation 5 years back in Sri Lanka?
5 years back is quite some time, and I am not very familiar with the situation in Sri Lanka back at the time. Think about the situation in Sri Lanka now. Sri Lanka has a lot of technical expertise. Sri Lanka is very rich in terms of knowledge, which is, I think, similar to many Asian countries. When you were focusing on Africa, you didn't have as much knowledge, resources, or technical resources. And very well with OpenMRS. To these countries, Sri Lanka or other Asian countries, I think India, the Philippines, have just much the hope of succeeding because the technical expertise Sri Lankans and many Asian countries have is quite considered to other countries, other emerging countries. In Sri Lanka, and I worked with many of the doctors there. They have a lot of potential. I think it will be very, very easy, very well done and maintain it. Personal belief.
Okay, we have a follow-up question from Dr. Saminda Dharmaratna. What Sri Lankan community support is available for customization of OpenMRS to hospital systems? Repeat the question. What of Sri Lankan community support is available for customization of OpenMRS to hospital systems?
So right now the Sri Lankan community is quite new. We don't have a formal community as such, but we'll be happy to set up one for you. We help you with training. We can help people set up training programs, help point you at the right people. We can help answer your questions. So for example, if you have technical problems, technical difficulties, you are welcome to raise those questions on talk and to entertain them. What kind of funding you have, or if that's a potential. If there is possible, of course, we can connect you to possible developers with Sri Lanka or in the region who can help you. Depends on how far along you are in the work and based on what your requirements are. If you want technical support, yes. If you want training, yes, that can be done. Based like what the budget is, we can also help with people who can lead develop work or consult or things like that. Either there are a lot of Sri Lankan students who are knowledgeable in OpenMRS and work in the IT sector. So the potential, we have a lot of knowledge resources in Sri Lanka who can.
There's a follow-up question for that particular question. That is, it goes as, is there any specific customization to support GP system in Sri Lanka? Since EHR systems for GP practice and outpatient department is a burning requirement. I'll repeat the question. Is there any specific customization to support GP systems in Sri Lanka, since EHS systems for GP practice and outpatient department is a burning requirement?
I will definitely know. I want to take OpenMRS and use the features it provides to at least fulfill of your use cases. We have specific work using GPs. Some of the functionality I believe is reusable. We'll be discussed and talked about what we can do to improve the system for GP practice, but right, unfortunately, there's nothing specific for that. And the same OpenMRS can be used on at least some of the use cases that you might need to fulfill.
You are the community manager for the Asian and Asia Pacific region. I think the next question is quite suitable. It goes as, how is the use and implementations of OpenMRS in Asian region? Well, not just Sri Lanka. Many countries are at a stage where they are actively implementations. We have implementations in many countries, but at a phase where things are really booming. I know in the Philippines have always had a very strong presence, and going forward with the OpenMRS work, I openly met with a few of them to work and working towards regional structure, which is really nice. India, ThoughtWorks have been doing a lot of work, and I have at least some regional work underway in terms of connecting systems. The organization named IRD, Institute and Development, headquartered in Pakistan. So they have a lot of work on OpenMRS, specifically on Medicare and other such care. They work in Tajikistan, Balochistan, Pakistan as well, and Afghanistan, I believe. Sri Lanka, I think you can talk more about the actual Sri Lankan initiative. There's quite a lot of work happening, and I hope it will continue in the future. Ranga, we'll now move on to another technical question. It's from Surayu Sumasono. It goes as, is it possible to connect OpenMRS into XDS environment?
To XDS. So for people to, XDS is basically a standard that you connect share data. So two answers. One way of doing it is by writing a module that integrates XDS support and OpenMRS with the XDS repository. Such a module of the write-off. Health Information Exchange community, which has OpenMRS as a component, with such support. So, HISSL community, we call a feature where basically people can send XDS documents and are stored as an XDS repository that connects to OpenMRS. So basically, open XDS documents to another OpenMRS repository, which creates registry. Being done here as part of a health information exchange. But there you can learn there and easily copy out to do it.
And there are several representatives from various organizations in Sri Lanka. I think some of them may be actively involved in development and implementation works of OpenMRS. You can share your thoughts and you can express what you have done so far in Sri Lanka. Feel free to join. Moving on to the next question. ICD-10 codes on X forms.
I think that basically the idea is that ICD-10 codes are already part of the concept dictionary. It is done already. As long as you define the concept and the concept has the ICD-10 code assigned, it works.
all question that is quite related to the previous one. It goes as, can International Classification of Primary Care, second edition, ICPC-2, be used on OpenMRS? I'll repeat the question. Can International Classification of Primary Care, second edition, ICPC-2, be used on OpenMRS?
To the best knowledge, right now the MBPCL dictionary doesn't support that. However, it's not a problem because remember, the CI is just a knowledge resource that we recommend people to use because it's very extensive. So let's say in the MBPCI dictionary or you start from scratch, it doesn't matter. If ICPC2 concept terms, all you have to create your own and map them properly using the create form. There's no problem whatsoever in doing that. To take the MBPCI dictionary and create the new concepts on top of that, or you want to start from scratch. That is absolutely okay. We support any kind of standard concept, standard terminology, all the way to import it into OpenMRS or yourself platform.
Says, are there different OpenMRS installation types?
This connects to a bit to what I mentioned earlier in terms of trying it out. So, talked about a standalone. So, for example, if you just want to have it all use, if you're GP or if you're just having private practice, you might have to OpenMRS standalone, which is only accessible to you, and create. And also the WAR file. I believe the major concern would be, do you want to use the reference application or Barmini, the platform? Instead, you need to download the appropriate modules and the WAR file, specifically that. This again is basically for testing purposes only, or if you have your own practice and only using your data, then it makes perfect sense to set up the standalone on your machine. It's just and use it to record data on your patients. Talk about that in more detail if you have any more questions.
The next question we have is a bit of a general question. Please share with us the challenges and issues you have faced so far during your implementations of OpenMRS around the globe. Share with us the challenges and issues you have experienced so far while implementing OpenMRS around the world.
Biggest challenge I have faced personally is that people don't understand that OpenMRS is fully open source and that we really want to help you. So for example, we see people working on OpenMRS. At the same time, they don't think there's any value of them connecting to us because they don't think we will help them. So if commercial developer, it doesn't matter. If you're working, it doesn't matter. If a decision that someone else is funding to build on OpenMRS, it doesn't matter. I think the problem I have had is basically making people understand that OpenMRS is fully made up of volunteers and we are fully willing and able to help. Whatever questions you have, you should come to the community and make friends and talk to us. People shy away or tend to hide. I fully encourage to talk as much as possible because we are a very friendly community and we take a lot of effort to do that. So blockers, I think that would be the most severe blocker that I've ever faced. Because they'll talk to us more, they'd understand that we can help them a lot more. You are or what you're up to. Just talk to us and just in yourself and ask for help.
Question we have is, OpenMRS useful in monitoring and control of pandemics like Ebola and Zika? I repeat the question, is OpenMRS useful in monitoring and control of pandemics like Ebola and Zika?
That's exactly what TESLA is using OpenMRS for. So when anthrax came in and the Americans were really scared about the possibility of bioterrorism, they implemented CD module within Indiana. So basically, what happens is whenever a patient comes in and gets seen by a GP or at a care physician, that data goes to a CDS, a clinical decision support tool, we program to help identify those cases. So in report, that this case might be an endemic disease, the NCU can report that. We also know that OpenMRS was used for Ebola care. You must search on YouTube. There were a number of videos on how this was done. It was a named India, and we set up OpenMRS for managing AI across a number of countries and a few other countries. So yes, it has been used and it has been known to bring benefits in treating these cases.
We have two more questions pending. The first one goes as, what would be the new features that we can expect in OpenMRS versions to be released in future?
We are working very hard to support order entry. So that I expect. Also making a lot of effort to build the OpenMRS reference application. We understand that many implementers don't have the effort necessary to take and change it how they need. So I think you should expect a lot of support for order entry and in terms of making it more usable. We are working on clinical decision support, as we'll be doing things like improving FHIR and web services. Understanding what the OpenMRS community is focused on is our technical roadmap, which is OpenMRS Wiki. If you go, you can see like what our ambitions are for the next months and years, and even if you want to recommend, like propose what other things we should look at.
More question. Do people making standalone applications as a challenge to OpenMRS?
Standalone applications. Yes. I think the user is referring to other different healthcare applications and tools.
Indeed.
Because as I said, OpenMRS is more than just a platform. It happens that we are people, and it just happens that we are producing a tool. Patients are better than us. We are more than happy to help, and that's why we actively work on connecting to systems. A platform comes that is better than us, we'll be more than happy to even more help them. We don't mind. Our actual need is to help medical care, and reflects a lot of our work, because no matter what system comes up and is shown to work, we actively work on helping people connect to that. So if a system comes up and is very good, we support OpenMRS linking with and using that system. So no problem whatsoever, and we will help you to do that.
Yes, coming to the end of session, the final question we have is, do you plan on conducting the future sessions of this training program? What are the topics you expect to cover? I'll repeat the question. How do you plan on conducting the future sessions of this training program? What are the topics you expect to cover?
So we had a discussion on this with a number of the people who were helping me coordinate this. That many of you already knew a lot of the things that I talked about. Many of you have worked on OpenMRS. I have seen feedback that was collected from the questionnaire before, indicates that many people wanted implementation-focused discussions. I propose to do is I propose to take back the questionnaire feedback to our community manager and talk about what kind of implementation scenarios or kind of cases be most useful to you. We might also contact your AeHIN group to ask about what will be more beneficial. We'll work on identifying good speakers. For example, I won't be conducting all the sessions. I'll be talking to other people who are good at what they do. So it depends on what you want. As I said, we want to encourage you and basically just the foundation stone, because I think more important things are going to happen from this point onwards, because people are familiar with what I talked. So it will be implementation focused. It will also focus on development based on what you need, and be totally on what you need. We will talk about, I believe, the ecosystem. So in terms of integrating other systems and how that can be done as well.
Questions that we have so far. So any further remarks you want to make before we wind up?
I think it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm very thankful to HISSL and Dr. Mazira giving me this opportunity. I have already interacted with many of you, I believe, offline and in person. I think the first time that I've actually met with you as AeHIN, as a group. I will continue this session and bring in speakers, and I hope that we do is going to be useful to all of you. And I like to talk to us on talk to the community. We always encourage newcomers.
Since we're short of time, we'll be concluding the first session of online OpenMRS training program for today. If you have further questions to ask from Suranga, please feel free to forward them to us. We also make sure to distribute the resource material and the answers to the questions to you via email. We would also submit the feedback form will be sent in to you via email after this webinar, with the dates and topics of next sessions in due time. I must today's special in our Suranga Kasuratna for his valuable contribution in enhancing our knowledge on OpenMRS on behalf of Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka and Asia eHealth Information Network. And all my sincere gratitude extends to Charis from AeHIN Secretariat, Dr. Megane Vatta and Dr. Nishan Silva, who are currently with me coordinating the session from Sri Lanka. We'll be meeting again with the second session in near future. Then, bye-bye from Colombo.
Thank you. Bye.